Hey everybody, welcome back to JD Does Dev. I'm JD, and in this video we're going to get into installing an actual Drupal site and looking at how some of the things inside work. Let's go ahead and get started. Up next, we're going to do something a little bit more advanced. We're going to install a Drupal site and get it running on our Docksal install. Now, to get set up for this project, we first need to clone a repo from GitHub. Now, to do that, you're going to be using this set of commands. Going to cd into projects, or whichever folder you'd like to use for these projects. And then you're going to git clone this repo. And this is my repo of various training projects for this course. Once you've cloned it down, go into the Docksal Training Projects folder, and then check out the branch Drupal Site Step 1 as listed here. So let's go ahead and do that. Now to get started on this, I'm going to go into my editor here. And as you can see, I've really got nothing going on. So we're going to run these commands. Go into our projects folder. Git clone. And then the long name for my repo. Now that it's cloned in, we're just going to take a look, and you can see here it is, Docksal Training Projects. So we're going to go ahead and go in there and take a look. Right now, since we haven't changed branches, we're the main branch. So I'm going to run git checkout Drupal Site Step 1. Now let's take a look. It's slightly different. So if you're using VS Code, right now would be a good time to open up this folder here. I'm going to open it up, and here we are. So if you take a look over at the sidebar, you'll notice where I'm highlighting here, we've got a couple different things. So just to explain, we've got the Docksal folder, or .docksal, or Git folder, because we're using a repo. Config, brush, scripts, web, this is our web root. And then quite a few other files that have to do with getting Drupal and web projects up and running. But the two biggest, most important ones here are the web folder and the Docksal folder. If we were to remove the Docksal folder, the project could still work, but not as a Docksal project. So basically, all that you need to make a project work in Docksal is this Docksal folder. So now that we've cloned the repo and taken a look, we're going to run a command we haven't talked about yet, and that's Fin Init. Now, before we run that, a little info on what Fin Init is and what it does. Fin Init is a custom command that is not part of the core Docksal package. Instead, it's customized on a project-by-project basis. Sometimes it's not even required. The purpose of Fin Init is usually to completely start or restart a project from a clean state. This means that when you run Fin Init, it will remove all existing project containers, volumes, and recreate them, and it'll run any other functions defined within the script. Now, let's open up the terminal, run Fin Init, and see what happens. Make sure we're in the right spot, which we are. Fin Init. So a few things are happening here. You can see that we're removing containers, but since this is our first time, there's nothing to remove. And now it's creating our volumes, creating our containers, connecting to vhost proxy down here, and waiting for the project stack to become ready. After that's ready, it's going to begin the site initialization process, and this takes a little bit, so I'm going to pause the video and come back once it's done. Alright, so we finished spinning up our site, and you can see it took us about just under 4 minutes. Now, a couple things happened here. I'm not going to scroll all the way back up, but it installed the Drupal site. You can see from the highlighted section. It gave us an admin name, or a user admin name, and a user password that we can use specifically for this site, randomly generated password, and it gave us a URL. Now, this URL is based completely on the folder that the project lives in. So let's go ahead and take a look at our site. And here we go. We've got a fully functioning Drupal site. So let's just log in using the credentials that were given to us. Admin, password, and perfect. Logged in, everything's working. Let's just take a look at our status report. Great. A couple of errors found, but those are normal for local development, and a couple of warnings. But we've got our database connection, we've got our PHP, Drupal. Everything seems to be working out well. So let's head on back to our editor. Okay, I'm going to close down the terminal here for a little bit, and we're going to take a look at some things. First off, we're going to examine the Fin Init command. Now, Fin Init exists in two pieces. Both of these are inside the Docksal commands folder. So let's expand that and take a look. So you can see that I've got 3 files in here, but we're going to look at Fin Init. And let's just go down and take a look and see what all is going on in here. So we've got some colors being set and just saying what's going on, and then we run this command, fin project reset. That tells Docksal that we're going to be resetting this project from a clean slate. After the project's reset, we're going to be doing site initialization, and we're running this command, fin init site. Now, this command, the reason that we're running another script within fin init is because we want the commands to be run inside the container. By running this command, fin init itself, that's coming outside of the container. So it's not actually interacting with things in the file system inside the Docksal containers. So instead, we're running fin init site, which is a script, and by wrapping it in fin, we're telling Docksal that we want these commands to be run inside the container. So let's take a look inside the init site file. All right, so it's a bash file, which is great. Like I said, Docksal runs on bash, and we've got a couple settings that are in here. Now, the project root and doc root are set within the environment for the CLI. So those have default values that can be changed, but we aren't changing them now. We've got a function here to help out to copy the settings file where it should go, which will take the default settings and copy it to settings.php, which is Drupal specific, but I'm sure there are similar functions for other projects. Part of installation is composer install. So this is going through running composer install inside the container, and it's pulling down all the packages for the vendor folder that are needed for Drupal to run. Now, here in the init settings, we're actually doing the copying of the settings file from the default to the regular. Also with the settings local, we run our fixed permissions, and then the big thing is site install. This method basically runs a drush command, which is Drupal shell, and it says that we're going to install this site. Now, all these functions are written out here. They haven't been run yet. So once we run fin init, and fin init calls fin init site, now these commands just get called right down the line. First, we composer install, fix permissions, init settings, and run a site install. And then after everything's done, we'll get a nice little message saying that the site's been installed. Now this comes with the default Drupal setup. If we did a vanilla Docksal project with no boilerplates whatsoever, we won't have a fin init. So this is something that you have to either make on your own or take from a different project and manipulate it to be what you need it to be. Now, there are a couple gotchas here. There's a chance that fin init may fail due to a composer memory error, which is pretty standard. It happens pretty often. If you see output similar to this, I'll paste it. You see this error, then you're probably going to have to add some resources to your Docker setup. If you're using a virtual machine, you'll have to do that within the settings system menu. If you're using Docker desktop, then you can do that within the UI under Preferences. So I suggest you make sure that the memory is at least 4 gigs, CPUs are what you think you need, and that your storage is high enough. I use 32 gigs on mine. Now, after you do all that, make sure it's set the way that you want it, restart your system, then run Fin Init again, and you should be able to get things spun up. In this section, we were able to spin up a Drupal site working with only a couple of commands and pulling down a single repo. We didn't have to set up any database connections or anything like that. Everything just worked. In the next section, we're going to be going a little bit further and see how we can customize Docksal to our specific needs. That's going to wrap it up for this video. Again, thanks for watching. I'm JD. This is JD Does Dev. And if you don't mind, go ahead, look down at that bottom, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and leave a comment if there's anything that you'd like to tell me at all. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks.